Mirëmbrëma të nderuar shikues të televizionit ALB UK dhe mirë se vini në emisionin UniversAL. Sonte në emision kemi një mysafir shumë të veçantë për shqiptarët. Ai është një shqiptaro-amerikan pasi vjen nga arbreshët e Italisë, është një ish-kongresmen në Kongresin Amerikan dhe kryetar i lobit të vetëm shqiptaro-amerikan në Shtetet e Bashkuara të Amerikës, pra kryetar i Lidhjes Qytetare Shqiptaro-Amerikane dhe është pikërisht zoti Joseph DioGuardi. Mr. DioGuardi, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Very nice to be here with you. I should say Mir Brahma because we have a difference in time, and I'll say Mir Brahma to you and all the Albanian people that watch your fine show.
It's a great pleasure to have you on. Over the years, Mr. DioGuardi, you have given a great contribution through your lobby in achieving the liberation and then the independence of Kosovo. I would like to know, how do you see Kosovo now after over 20 years of liberation and in a few days become 13 years as an independent state?
I wish I could say it was a straight line up, but it wasn't. We worked very hard here, Albanian-Americans, supporting this independent lobby that I formed when I left Congress in 1989, and when Shirley joined me as a professional publisher, author, writer, speaker in 1994. We have made many accomplishments, but because of political infighting in the Balkans, especially in Kosovo, with parties that arose after I brought Ibrahim Rugova here with academics. Don't forget, when I started this in 1989, I was preparing to bring people here from Kosovo, but I first went to Serbia in November 1989 in order to assess individually, personally, what was going on, because I noticed that the Serbs had this wonderful bully pulpit called Tanjug, and the Albanians didn't have the ability to project what their needs were. So I went there, and sure enough, it took some time, but I got a meeting going in the International Press Center with the Serbian press people and noticed that they were completely unaware of the things that we were publishing in the United States. And I brought an article from the Wall Street Journal that showed how difficult it was for Albanians to live in a place called Yugoslavia. So you could see that the beginning had started, and this was just 2 months after Serbia dominated Yugoslavia and Milosevic became the president of the Communist Party and also the president of Serbia. And that was a dangerous trip for me to take, but I was kind of under instructions from Congressman Lantos, who was the chairman of the Congressional Human Rights Caucus. He says, Joe, I can't go there now, but you should go, take pictures. I want to see the streets of Kosovo. I want to see these tanks. I want to see this military occupation, and get me the pictures of these Albanian people who have been killed, because the Serbs are saying no Albanians have died, and they were lying about this. So I went from Belgrade down to Kosovo and then took the pictures and came back, and that's when Congressman Lantos said, my God, this reminds me of the Warsaw Ghetto, what you're showing me in Kosovo today. And those pictures were very informative to him, and then he agreed to come with me back to Pristina in May, and we then combined that with a trip to Albania. Now we can go over all that, but don't forget, this could be a much longer show if we went into everything that I did. But I have to tell you, it's been difficult. Think about that. We started in 1990, and the goal of bringing Rugova here to testify with a dozen other civic leaders, academic leaders, was to begin the process of building a bridge between Washington and the Albanian people, certainly in Kosovo. And it wasn't easy to do. And think about how many years it took to get independence recognized, from 1990 to 2008. And even today, you can see we have problems. There are elections that are going to occur tomorrow, I believe, on Sunday, and it's going to be something that we're watching very avidly. But in any case, it's not been an even ride because the Serbs have the power to dominate the media. Albanians have not had that power. And the Serbs like to lie a lot. they have tried to reinvent, like the Communist Party of Punis under Enver Hoxha and Ramiz Alia. There were many lies about what was really going on, and we've tried to correct that.
Right. Kosovo has come so far, but still has many challenges ahead, especially on its path to integration into the European Union, where 5 member states still do not recognize Kosovo as an independent state. But one of the main challenges remains the mutual recognition between Serbia and Kosovo. How do you see the future of Kosovo in this context? Will the mutual recognition be achieved between the two countries?
I hope. We've been working on that for a long time, but you can see how intransigent Serbian leaders have been. They don't want to give 1 inch on this issue of mutual recognition. And this is bad for them, because I think the European Union has made it known that if you want entrance into the European Union, you have to show that you are a good neighbor. Serbia certainly has not shown that it has been a good neighbor, certainly under Milosevic, because we had to literally, and my wife Shirley and I had a key role in that, because we went to The Hague to be sure he was properly exposed, and he died in his cell in 2002 in The Hague. But now we've had others following that are continuing this myopic, chauvinistic view of the Serbian people, that they are the dominant force when it comes to Southeast Europe and the Balkans. And we have counteracted that very well with the leaders that we've met in the House and the Senate, and we've even done that with Senator Biden, who's now the President of the United States, and I'm sure you've seen some of the tapes on that. We have an issue that is really a tough issue with Serbia, because they are not looking for a compromise. They're looking to dominate, as they've done in the past, and they've always had this way of trying to equalize, what they have done against the Albanian people to what they think we are doing with them. No, there is no equalization. It was genocide. That's what Milosevic was brought to The Hague for human rights violations of the highest order and genocide. And he was just about to be convicted on that when the night before he died, he didn't take his heart medicine and he expired, as you know. But we at least got in, Shirley and I went to The Hague and made sure we got everything on the record that we had to get on the record. So we are still fighting this battle of inequality in many ways. And we have to continue. That's what a lobby is for. And thank God our lobby is not a lobby that is paid by any government, including the United States. It is a volunteer lobby of the Albanian people.
Do you think the European Union is doing enough in order to reach an agreement between Kosovo and Serbia?
I guess not, because recently I saw where they reacted to the letter that Biden sent to Vučić, where he said that it's time for Serbia to recognize Kosovo. And we didn't see a good response from the European Union. In fact, I think what they're saying is that, let's get these talks going again, and it may not be necessary before those talks begin that we have recognition by Serbia of Kosovo. That's wrong. And if I were the politicians and the leaders of Kosovo, I would not go into any talks without that precondition that Serbia finally has to recognize Kosovo. In fact, there should be more than that. There should be reparations. We lost over 10,000 people in Kosovo. Well, Bosnia lost 250,000. But our Civic League made sure, because we knew the key goal or the key prize for the Serbs and Milosevic has always been Kosovo. They want a land grab. They're not interested in helping the Albanian people. They want to take more territory. The problem for us and Albanians has always been the quest for Greater Serbia. But they tried to reverse it and say all the time, oh, look at this. The Albanians want to now expand. Albania now wants to go back to the borders of after World War I. No, that's wrong. Those borders, by the way, were false borders. That was not a good settlement of World War I. And too bad Albanians did not have the spokesman with the power of the words to convince the world at that time. And as you know, it went to 1921 when Yugoslavia was formed, and Albanians, all of them, almost were put in a new country called Yugoslavia, except for Woodrow Wilson, who recognized that the Albanians were not Slavs, they were a separate people. And today we have the same issues, and we have to, don't forget, people are not educated here on European history, especially Albanian European history, so we have to educate them. And part of our league is to do that, to educate people as well as inform the Congress of the United States of America and the executive branch about what's really going on, because the lies that come out of Belgrade are incredible.
Has the previous United States administration tried to take on a more important role than the European Union in terms of Kosovo-Serbia negotiations?
If you're talking about the last administration, obviously not. Trump messed everything up. He brings this envoy Grinnell with him. There was a meeting in the White House that resulted in nothing but photo ops, photos so that Vučić could look like he was doing something with the President of the United States. But we know why Trump is in trouble even today. He lied a lot. And look at what's going on with this impeachment. And don't forget, the impeachment has happened twice. And that's an important historical step, because that is the charges. What's happening right now that you see on TV is the court, and that's the Senate, where he is now going to be ruled as either guilty or not. And you can see now it's moving it, or at least things are moving so that more Republicans are seeing the real facts by the videos that are shown. And I think you will see more Republicans joining with the Democrats on this. Whether or not they're going to now forget their personal interests because of the next election, because some of them feel that Trump has too many supporters and has access to money, has access to the heart of the Republican Party, which I don't believe. I think now that he's off of Twitter and he's not any longer the president, you're going to see him fade away. But he tried to pull a fast one on the Albanian people, having this meeting at the White House, which didn't result in anything but some photos, and it's got to be redone. So now we have a friend in the White House. His name is Joe Biden, who has been there as the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. I testified in front of them several times. Shirley has as well. And we've tried to educate them, and we certainly educated Biden, because when you see the clips, when we brought him to New York, you will see him saying, hey, Joe, you educated me, but you also changed my heart, and I changed my mind. So, and this was about Milosevic. I didn't quote it exactly, but when you see the tape, you'll see it. And that was nice to hear that we did such a good job in our hearings with Biden as a first-hand witness of the testimony that I gave and the testimony that Shirley gave in another hearing where she was with Jean Kirkpatrick and also with Senator Dole and the former Secretary of State, Kissinger. So we're doing our job. We're working. But we're not the United States of America. We're an independent lobby. We have to worry about support. We don't take support from any governments. And Albanians now are not, they're suffering. I should say it right out loud, economically. Many of the Albanian Americans that support us own restaurants and construction companies, and they are the two industries, I guess, besides education, which is another big issue because the kids are not in school, and hopefully they'll go back soon. But those two industries are really not doing well. So we have an issue. And that's why now we're appealing to even for members in Europe and in England. We have a few members already. And also we're trying to get our affiliate, I shouldn't maybe call it affiliate, it's separate, but we helped start the Albanian Swiss Civic League. And they've done a wonderful job because now we've got 20 members of the Swiss Parliament that are pro-Kosovo, and we got to keep doing that. And one of the things I'd like to see in the UK is a group of Albanians that form some kind of an advocacy group, you can call it a lobby, so that they position themselves as citizens in the UK to make the case for the Albanian people, as we do here in Washington.
Right. Mr. DioGuardi, you just mentioned, you just said a friend of the Albanians, meaning President Joe Biden. Also earlier on, you mentioned the letter sent to the President of Serbia, Vučić. where he asks the president for the mutual recognition of the Serbia and Kosovo. Now that we have Joe Biden as president in the White House, and if Albin Kurti wins the snap elections, which are tomorrow in Kosovo, and he becomes the Kosovan prime minister, what does it mean for the talks between Serbia and Kosovo? Would it mean a more difficult process, or it has its own advantages?
Well, first of all, we don't speak officially for the Albanian people, not in Kosovo, not in Albania. We feel strongly that we represent the Albanian nation. The Albanian nation today is 7 million plus Albanians in Southeast Europe. And that's basically what we worry about. We worry about Albanians in Prisheva, Montenegro, Macedonia, even in Greece, which is very difficult. They're like Serbia, they're very intransigent. There's still a state of war on the books of Greece. I've tried to, write the prime ministers of Greece and Albania to try to remove this. I sent letters to Eddie Rama, and I don't see them aggressively doing this. So apparently there's something to be gained, by Albanians in Albania from not doing anything more on that issue. But the point is that we need to now go forward as a strong voice for all Albanians. Today, as it was in the past, the key issue for us is Kosovo. That's where I see, as an Albrecht person who has seen the history, because it's part of my family, although they were not educated. I learned more about that history when I got to Congress. But it's important that we have the issue clearly stated, who the Albanian people are. A lot of people don't understand who the Albanian nation really is. But right now, Kosovo is the key part of it, as far as I'm concerned, because that's where the Shpirti and Zemra that I see in the Albrecht resides with the Albanian people. Think about the Albanians being under the worst communism ever under Enver Hoxha, where priests, rabbis, you name it, Muslim people were killed, the imams, churches were burned down, made into sports halls. Albanian people had to suffer this, and then they went into jails which were terrible, like Spac. Surely had read a lot about that and shared that information with me. So we need to now deal right now with Kosovo. Kosovo has the best opportunity with the education it's gotten, with the fact that it's not been, under the boot of a communist leader as tough as Enver Hoxha, that we need to figure out how to make Kosovo a true democratic place like the United States of America, and it begins with elections. I don't like the way politicians are elected in Kosovo. Why aren't they elected as people? Why do we have to go through parties, and then the parties give you a list, and then whoever gets the most votes in the parties and the political leaders then become the bosses? That reminds me of the mafia over here. We've had problems in the old days with things like that. We had to get rid of it. Not that the mafia controlled politics, but we had American leaders, political leaders, Republican, Democrat, you name it, that acted many times like the mafia, where they wanted total control. And we, little by little, got away from that. The point is, we need to change elections in Kosovo so the people have representatives, true representatives, where they know who their representative is. And then they can feel, is that person, male or woman, doing the job?
Mr. DioGuardi, as you know, there has been a lot of talk on the possibility of exchange of territories in order to achieve a mutual recognition between the two countries. If there were such approaches behind the scenes, do you think the exchange of territories was or still is today the right solution?
God forbid. You should not give 1 inch to Vučić or these Serbian leaders who have done nothing but try to equalize state-run terrorism against Albanians to human rights violations of some Albanians, maybe against a few Serbs. No, I would say that Albanians have to stand tough. They've suffered a lot. They've lost over, I understand, like 12,000 people. And look at every home burned. I saw this in Jakova, where Milosevic burned down practically the whole city. And we're now going to go into talks with another new Milosevic, and that's what who Vucic is. And why is Rama and Erdogan paying any attention to him? It must have something to do with economic, advantages for them. But that's something that the Albanian people have to realize. There is no sense in doing anything with Serbia until they recognize Kosovo. Their modus operandi has always been to equate state-run terrorism by Serbia, certainly in Yugoslavia and afterwards, to just violations of sort or some minor criminal activity that may have happened with the Albanians in Kosovo. So I am firmly against it, and not that I have anything official to say about it, but I hope that Albin Kurdi, if he is the next prime minister, and I hope that the parliament with Fatah Bislimi in it, because he is a member of our lobby for 15 years now, and he is a very smart guy, and I hope that they stand strong on these issues.
Several senior members of Kosovan Liberation Army are already in The Hague awaiting trial for war crimes. How do you consider these arrests? And if they were to be found guilty, what would it mean for the war waged by the Kosovan Liberation Army?
Well, we went to The Hague in order to challenge Serbia again and challenge people trying to put Albanian leaders in The Hague. Why? Were we, interested in saving individuals? No, because once leaders of Kosovo are convicted of terrorism and things like that, and these were the charges, then that makes it easy for the Serbs to say, oh, look, Kosovo is a terrorist state. And we had Ambassador Gelbard, my wife Shirley, our Balkan Affairs advisor, had to literally take him on. There was a hearing on Bosnia in 1998, I believe it was, that we found out because Chairman Gilman, he was the chairman of the House Foreign Relations Committee, had told us it was coming up on Bosnia, and we said, Ben, and he was a good friend of ours, American Jew, just like Lantos. We said, Ben, you should be having this hearing on Kosovo. It's not over. There's going to be a war in Kosovo. We already saw it coming. And Ben made sure that we were invited to that hearing. We couldn't testify, but we then met with Ben and also the ranking member, which is the top Democrat, and that was Lee Hamilton. And we convinced them to ask the right questions to Ambassador Gelbard, who at that point seemed to be saying that it was Albanians that were the terrorists. But thank God, after the case that we made, he had to admit that he made a mistake. He didn't want to say he lied, and therefore we managed to get away from that. We got the same problem now. The people that are at The Hague right now, I hope are not guilty, but apparently they're there for good reason. I'm not the one to be the justice for who is guilty and who's not guilty for what they did in Kosovo or any place else. But I hope that they're not made guilty, but maybe they deserve it. And if they deserve it, full justice should be applied. But to me, it's dangerous because once that happens, that's going to be then easier for the Serbs to say, look, these criminals have been running around Kosovo all this time, and finally now they're at The Hague, and now look, they got convicted of war crimes or terrorism. I don't know what the charges are, but anything that deals with The Hague to me is bad, except if they get criminals there and convict them. And that's what's going on right now with President Trump, and I hope they deal with him the way he should be dealt with as well.
Right, I'm sure you are aware that early elections will be held in Kosovo tomorrow. I'd like to know, who do you think will lead the country forward, and what would your message be to the Kosovan voters?
Well, listen, I don't have any preconceptions about who should run Kosovo. Right. All I know is that they should be willing to reach out to me, Shirley, and our independent lobby, because without a connection to Washington, nothing is going to be really better for Kosovo. And now we've got someone in the White House that understands Kosovo. He's been educated as chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee. And I believe once the elections happen, the first thing the new prime minister should do is to send a letter to the president and the Congress to say that they want a hearing. In effect, they want to come, have a meeting at the White House, and then maybe be invited to meet with the leaders in Congress to express what their agenda is for the future of Kosovo and for the future of Southeast Europe, and hopefully their role in the European Union. I feel now strongly, and if you looked at some of those YouTube clips that I have, you'll see me in 1993 interviewing Sali Berisha, who did not fulfill his potential. I got there, I did a lot to help him get elected twice in 1991, 92, and when I went there to speak to him, I felt that he was not really totally there about what we needed to do as a lobby for him. And he did so, he did ask me, he says, Joe, we need to be in NATO. And I knew that that was important, because once you have a NATO in your country, then you have the protection of not only the United States, but the people that are in NATO. And a lot of armed forces are applied to that. Well, right now, we need Kosovo in NATO. You know, if it weren't for our Civic League, we wouldn't have bond steel. We lobbied for that. The chairman of the, Buck McKeon, was chairman of the Armed Services Committee. And when I heard, after we got bond steel, and I went there several times, that the Turks were looking to take it back, and that some people in Kosovo, the prior administration, would say, well, maybe, you know, we can get some money for this, and maybe Turkey would be better. And I absolutely, you know, had a fit. And Shirley and I quickly got on the phones again to the John McCain and other key people on the Armed Services Committee to say, no, wait, NATO is still not in Kosovo, and we cannot do anything but keep a U.S. footprint, armed services of the U.S. in Kosovo through bond steel. And that happened. That was a big piece of our lobbying that probably got buried, and people don't realize the work that we have done behind the scenes. But that is part of it. And I'm looking now mainly for NATO into Kosovo, Kosovo into the European Union, and obviously a good bridge between the United States and Kosovo. Those are the three objectives we have as a league going forward, and I can't wait to meet the new government. I hope they invite. We haven't been to Kosovo now in 12 years. My life is always under threat by people. You never know who's going to get paid to take out Joe DioGuardi because he was a problem, and all you have to do is look at Milosevic on the last day of his trial, repeating my name as satanizing him and the Serbian people. Well, it'd be easy for someone to say, maybe we should do something to get rid of this guy DioGuardi before he does anything more for the Albanian people. It's going to be difficult because I'm clever, I'm active, I move around a lot, but I don't mind now going back to Kosovo if I am properly invited and they listen to the work that Shirley and I not only have done. They don't have to listen. All I have to do is put on 200 YouTube videos to see it. But they, not only the work we've done, but what we want to do with the leaders of Kosovo. So hopefully there's going to be a resolve on this election which allows all the Albanian politicians to come together as we did when we brought Rugova here. Don't forget, they had no parties then. It was Levizia Demokratika, a movement for democracy. And I was happy about that. But then soon as, you know, Rugova and the officials, I'm not going to name names, but some of these people misled Rugova. They, you know, filled him with cigarettes and other things, and he was not listening enough carefully, and he was a great man, and thank God he started it. But right away, we started seeing parties formed over here because people realized that maybe we can raise some money and bring it back to Kosovo. And, you know, I still don't know what Bokoshi did with all that money he raised here. Tens and tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars. It certainly didn't come to the Albanian-American Civic League. But thank God, when he came, I was able to get Rugova into a room because we knew the chairman, Gilman, where all the presidents of countries had come for the prayer breakfast, and I had my camera. He says, Ben, they don't want Rugova in there. And it's going to not look good. It's going to look like we have no intention of recognizing Kosovo. But the point is, at least let me come in with my camera at the breakfast, 7:30 in the morning, to take a picture, because you can bring in Rugova. And he did. And Rugova got put on the line with Clinton, and the picture came up. I took it. I bet you people still don't realize it was my picture that I sent to the Albanian press. We do a lot of things that you probably are not aware of.
Okay, we're going to move on slightly from Kosovo. As I said in the beginning of the interview, You have done a lot of work through your lobby for the Albanians in general, but I'm sure you would agree with me that there's much more yet to be done when it comes to Albania divided in different countries, even though in their own lands. What has your lobby done or plans to do for the Albanians in Montenegro where, where there is a constant pressure for assimilation?
You know, that's one of our biggest disappointments, because in 2003 and 2005, we brought congressional delegations to Macedonia. Montenegro. We also did Macedonia, but this is Montenegro. And we went to Tuzi, Plovdiv, and we went to Kraja and Ulcin to meet the Albanian communities there. But we realized right away that the Albanian leaders for these Albanians were already divided. They were being bought off somehow by the Serbs in Montenegro. And we couldn't get any real progress, but at least we gave hope to the Albanian people there that someone was watching, and we're still watching. And when we came back from the first one, we convinced Lantos, who came with us, to do a hearing in the Congressional Human Rights Caucus, and it was a great hearing. We brought two Albanian leaders that I thought were prominent and educated and articulate, Nail Draga, I think he was an educator, and Anton Laici. And they did a good job at that. Shirley and I testified as well. And then we brought Congressman Rohrabacher in 2005. And still, we were not able to get the hearings we wanted with Jukanovic and others to try to convince them to, you know, build a commune in Tuzi, which they say they now have. But look what happened in between. 14 Albanians were arrested, and the morning of an election, I think it was to vote on the commune at that time, and four of them, or three of them, were citizens. And we had to spend so much time with Lantos. We had Lantos call Jukanovic, and it didn't work. They were put in jail, they were convicted, and you can imagine what kind of courts exist in Montenegro. But we tried to affect those by education, and we didn't. We did the same thing in Macedonia. You may recall that in Macedonia, not only did I go there in 1992 for the census, brought out the whole village of Vleshta, because we had many Albanian Americans here from that area, Struga, Vleshta. But just more recently, a few years ago, Ziadin Zella, you know, we introduced him to John McCain. We brought him here at our anniversary, and we brought him to meet directly with McCain and to talk to him. And when he tried to come back, he was almost killed in the parliament. It was a security guard that pulled his almost lifeless body into a closet so he could recover. When I got the pictures of him bruised, beaten, I took those pictures, blew them up, cost me $400 on one picture, and I convinced the Congress, or in that hearing, I convinced the people that we should put that picture up while I was testifying why we need a better representation for the Albanians in Macedonia. That still hasn't happened. But Albanians are at fault too. We got 800,000 Albanians, let's say, a third of the population, maybe more, and they've got 8, 9, 10, 12 parties. Why so many parties? You need a unified voice when you speak. And I hope Kosovo understands that as well, because what you need to do now for the Albanian nation is not going to be easy. Europe is suffering, especially with the virus. Look at the economies. Look at the United States. So if we're going to now work together, my voice is respected, so is Shirley's, and I'm very strong when I advocate for the Albanian people, because that's my blood. Unë jam kryetar, që jam shqiptaro-amerikane, and our bresh as well. So I can't wait to be invited properly to Kosovo and to be given the respect that we can now give our advice to the new leaders as to what we feel should happen in the United States especially. And also, now that we've got the Albanian-Swiss Civic League going, we went there last year. As you know, it was not last November, the November before, and that's on our YouTube video. Look at the great speech that Shirley gave there. And we now need to get more activity with that, because we see that I thought there were 500,000 Albanians in Switzerland. There's 1 million. Many of the Albanians, when they take the census, I found out don't put down they're Albanian. They put down they were Yugoslavian, or they put down they're from Montenegro or from Macedonia, and that's wrong. We got to now educate Albanians that they're part of a great nation that goes back thousands of years, much before the Serbs. Don't forget, the Serbs came here in the 7th century, and they became the Croatians, the Bosnians, the Montenegrins, the Macedonians, and then they divided Albanian people to weaken them after World War I into all these lands that used to be the state of Albania. Go back to the League of Prizren, look at the map, and you'll see all these places where Albanians are today, including Prisheva, were part of the Albanian nation. Now, I'm not saying we should change the map, but we need to get respect for that Albanian nation. And we need to have better representation in each of those areas through Albanians to represent their people. Now my main concern is Kosovo. God willing, inshallah, these elections tomorrow will go very well for the Albanian people. And I'm ready, my wife is ready, the Albanian-American Civic League is ready to do all we can for Kosovo to create a new era of freedom, democracy, and all the things, and hopefully economic. Don't forget, part of the problem we got today is there are no jobs in Kosovo, too much unemployment. And plus, you got this problem with the visas. We invited Fatah Bislimi, and he was accepted to join. In fact, Shirley, relinquished her seat at the inaugural, and Joe Biden knows of Fatah because he was an intern here when we were, when Lantos was the congressman. And we wanted to have, his presence to show Albanian people that we are so connected. And sure enough, he gets up 4:30 in the morning to get a plane in Vienna, and because of the visa situation, he wasn't, Kosovo is not part of the Schengen, and I don't like this mini Schengen. We have to go straighten out the visa situation once and for all. And Kosovo should not agree to be part of mini Schengen. That means that you're part of Serbia again, because they're going to control that with their friends in Serbia, with their friends in Turkey and in other places. So my feeling is that we got to work hard to get things changed, and it's a shame that we couldn't get a representative of Kosovo here while I was here, and that would have been nice. And I get a call 4:30 in the morning. Joe, he was practically in tears. Fatan says they won't let me on the plane. I said, I can't believe it. Can't you do something else? Well, they want me to go to Turkey, but then I have to quarantine for 14 days. Oh my God. We got to deal with this liberalization of visas once and for all. Put that high on the list, because the Serbs love it when Albanians can't get around to make their case. And we cannot just be the only voice for the Albanian people in Kosovo. They have to have people, young people, that can travel.
Mr. DioGuardi, you founded the Albanian-American Civic League in 1989, but when was your first visit to Albania, and what were your first impressions of the country and the people?
Well, another interesting story. I mean, I haven't written any books yet. In fact, there's one that's going to be coming out hopefully in a couple of months after this election. Fatan was helping me and Shirley on it, to tell what this league did between 1985 and when Shirley came in 1994. And there's so much, it has to be put in writing. And I have all the documents. I have all the congressional resolutions, the hearings we had, and statements that were made. And it's got to get out, because we have to educate the young Albanians today. Young Albanians weren't even born when I was in Congress, 1985, 86. And they weren't born when I started the league in 89, 90. So we've got to educate them. They've only been educated by local politicians about the parties they should vote for. That is not enough. Now, in 1989, Albania saw the good job that I was doing for the Albanian people in Kosovo, and I started getting calls from the representatives of Albania. In fact, Bashkin Patarka at that point was the person here representing Albania in the United Nations, and he had this beautiful townhouse on 79th Street in Manhattan. And I went to visit him. He called me over a couple of times, and then I realized that every time I went to see him, I was either someone said, you're being taped, every word you say, and there's always a secretary there writing everything down. And he wanted me to be honored. In other words, they were trying, I thought, to trick me into coming to Albania because they heard I was interested in going to Kosovo. And sure enough, after a year, I had decided, hey, if I'm ever going to go to Albania, it's not going to be by myself, because they're going to think, and they're going to be shrewd, I shouldn't say shrewd, tricky, by saying, look at Joe, he's here with us, he supports our communist government. God forbid. I was always against communism. So the point is, I said to them, I said, no, if I come, I've got to come with a sitting congressman. It turned out that Lantos had told me a couple of years before, Joe, I'm born in Hungary. I know the history of the Albanian people. I've been all over the world. I would love to be the first one. I know they're going to invite you, the first one to join you to go to Albania. Well, that became a self-fulfilling prophecy, because I was invited after we brought Rogovi here in April of 1990. Lantos then decided, after he saw the pictures I brought back in '89, that he had decided, no, we got to go. I got to see this for myself. So we're going to Kosovo. And I brought him there in end of May 1990. Right. But we decided at that point to also go to Albania. So I told the representative of Ramiz Alia, because they were bugging me left and right. They thought they were going to honor me by bringing me just to Albania. I said, no, if you want me to come, I got to bring an American Jewish congressman, Tom Lantos, head of the Human Rights. And can you imagine bringing the head of the Human Rights Committee to a communist country that didn't respect human rights for 50 years? But they must have been in trouble because they allowed me to do that. Then they tried to convince me to go to Albania first. I said, no, I've already booked it. We're going to Kosovo first, and then we will take a car across the border. So then they wanted me to come easy across through Struga. Someone called me and said, if you go that way, they're going to get a picture with you and Nejmi Hoxha. I don't think you want that. So I called them back. I said, no, because they told me it's going to take over a day, mountains up and down from Prizren. They opened the gates in Prizren to Albania, first time in 50 years for me to go through. I have a picture that I took of the police just opening the gate. So the point is, we go to Albania, and I meet this gentleman president, Ramiz Alia, for the first time. Right. And he struck me as someone who was reasonable. Now, I didn't live under communism, and I didn't know exactly how he followed up with Enver Hoxha, but he was there 5 years, and then he started to tell me nice things about what we should be able to do, because apparently he was in trouble, and we were beginning to feel that way, that Albanians were sensing, since the Berlin Wall came down in 1989, that Ramiz Alia was forced to do something. So this put me in a good position to tell him that, you know, we can do something with the United States, but I think it's going to take some time. Now, I only spent a couple of days there, but during that period, he started talking about a lot of things. And after 2 hours, I said, by the way, Mr. President, do you know how important Tom Lantos is? He's an American Jew. And he stopped right there. He says, looks at Lantos, you're an American Jew? He said, yes. Have you been to Berat? We said, no. He arranged the next day for us to go to Berat, an historic place for the Jewish community in Albania. And before we left, he gave me and Lantos a file about 4 inches thick of letters sent by American Jews, no, Jews from all over the world, excuse me, who were saved by Albanian people. These letters never saw the light of day. They were put on a shelf in the communist archives. I was told money was in it. They took the money out, and they just left the letters. Thank God I got those letters, all different languages, and clippings, and postcards. And what this was, were the people who were saved by the Albanian people, Jews saved all over the world, some in Spanish, Mexico. I remember one, the dentist there. And they wanted to say thank you to their rescuers. They wanted to connect. The Albanian government, communist government, didn't let them connect for 50 years. But I made up for that. I took that file, immediately got it to Yad Vashem in Israel through my Jewish friend, Eli Streit, and that's the first time they couldn't believe it, that this story, that Albanians saved every Jew in Albania. But now we're building a wall in Kosovo. It's not finished yet. It's been held up by the virus, because what Yad Vashem did was only put the names of the Albanians from Albania. There's nothing wrong with that. But now, and Rama didn't do anything better. But now we're going to build a wall with the names of Albanians who saved Jews all over the Balkans. And that's in process right now. And this is important. This is a large Jewish community around the world.
Yep.
And it's a small nation, like the Albanian people. If you total them all up around the world, 15 million. If you total up all the Albanians, including the Arbresh and the people that were assimilated in Turkey, you got 15 million. So we want to now make sure that this story gets told. The wall will give me and Shirley the opportunity. We already have raised money in our foundation. This is not a political thing. This is to educate the world who the Albanian people are. We have a book now. Fatah Balimi has prepared it. It's an anthology of all the things that we've done with the Jewish and Albanian people. And we're going to make thousands and thousands of copies to send to every large Jewish community in the world. Our Albanian Swiss group has already gotten 450 copies, and they're distributing it not only to the parliament in Switzerland, but they're distributing it to the large Jewish community that we now have made contacts with in Zurich. This is important. We got to educate the world. Who are the Albanian people? And when you educate the Jewish people, they have a big voice, a big mouth. They like to tell the world who loves them. And that's how we got so far with this issue. Thank God I discovered it. Thank God I had connections with Jewish people from my congressional days. And not only that, my days as a certified public accountant. And we got that story to Yad Vashem, and they made a big deal of it, but not big enough. We now have to do the rest of the job. In fact, I always tell Albanians, our work is not done. You know, they always say, oh, Joe, thank you for all you've done. Look, you know, we know that you're on in years and whatnot. I says, you can thank me all you want, but I'm not going to feel good until I see respect for the Albanian people as a nation of people, a great nation of people, where my father came from in the 15th century. 1488 was when the Turks chased out the Albanians. And thank God my father, as a Roman Catholic, said, no, we cannot stay here. We have to go to Italy. And they went across the Adriatic. And that's the first country Skanderbeg put his feet in. First, not country, first of the 51 Albanian-speaking villages, Katundi Greci is the first place that Skanderbeg won in. I could tell the whole story, but you haven't got enough time for that.
Mr. DioGuardi, what were your relations with various Albanian leaders over the years?
Well, name them. I mean, if you're talking about from Albania, very poor, because as you know, it's a corrupt state. In fact, now it's the plantation of Europe for drugs and pot and cannabis is Albania. That's not the reputation I saw for Albania. I saw good people. Their hearts were diminished because of communism. Their spirit was diminished. But they have to now understand that a strong bridge has to be built between Albania and Kosovo. And I hope that the leaders of both countries see the need for that. Because right now, Albania is ranked very low in terms of economy, very high in terms of drug trafficking and corruption and political corruption. And that's not what I like to see for the Albanian people. If you look at the Albanian leaders in Kosovo, they have been too distracted ever since, you know, the KLA did a great job. I've always defended the KLA, that this was this was a country that needed a force of civilians.
Who is to blame for the very long transition, Mr. DioGuardi?
You have to blame the Albanian leaders. Why did they set up all these parties? Why did they right away come over here to raise money, to build big houses over there? Where are the rules that when you run for office in Albania and Kosovo, and I understand that Fatan tells me there's some laws now on the books that I hope the next generation, the next government picks up, that you have to announce, where did you get the money to buy these expensive houses and cars? Where did you get the money to live so much bigger than the rest of the people in Albania and Kosovo? You got to do this in America. I can't run for office unless I declare, what am I worth? How did I earn the money? This is not going on. So obviously you got people there that are like, you know, pirates. They just want to grab what they can for themselves. They're not looking to benefit the Albanian nation. And they found friends here, Albanian-Americans here that were a part of my board, part of the board of the Albanian-American Civic League, were convinced that I was not doing enough in 1991, 92, 93. And they then made I connected them, because they were on the board, with people here. I'm not going to name the names. They'll find out later on who their names are. And they started a new lobby called National Albanian-American Council. But they didn't set it up right. They didn't file the right papers. It was supposed to be done as a lobby, and a lobby is not a charity. They set it up as a charity so rich Albanians could get tax deductions here. And that was wrong, and they got caught. They started getting money from the US government for that to diminish my voice. Well, they are gone. The only lobby that exists today is the Albanian-American Civic League, Lidhja Qytetare Shqiptaro-Amerikane. And thank God we have a good board, and we have many followers, but now we need people around the world. In UK, I'm not going to give you the names, but people have already supported that wall in Kosovo through the foundation with a substantial donation. So we know that there is a heart there that wants to see the Albanian nation go ahead, and respect for the Albanian people. And thank you, Martin, for what you're doing with this show. I didn't realize we just had one Albanian UK TV show. I thought there were many of them. But the fact that we have been in touch and you've played some of the things that we've given you is wonderful, because you're educating now the people in the UK. Now we have to get them together to do what they did in Switzerland, to form kind of a parliament, form a lobby. You can call it a lobby, you can call it an advocacy group, but whatever it is, we need people to join together to have a voice for the Albanian people in the UK, and then take that voice to the parliament and start educating parliamentarians. I went there, Paddy Ashdown. I met with him when I went to the UK to speak at some of the universities there, and I hope to go back again.
Something else I would like your opinion on, Mr. DioGuardi, is has Albanian governments over the years done enough for the Irish community in Italy, but also on the other side in Greece for the Chamria, to bring them closer to Albania, or do more for the cause of Chamria especially?
You're asking me now questions that we could have a full day on. And I'm not sure I've got all the answers, but I've got ideas, that's for sure. I have been trying to get the Italian government to see the Arbresh people of Italy, who have done a lot in Italy. If you want to go back, you will see the heroes, the Arbresh heroes, that even helped form the state of Italy. Garibaldi had help from Albanians that were Arbresh. And Italy recognizes this. In fact, there's a good relationship between the Arbresh and the Italians. In fact, I was surprised to find out in my father's Cotundi Greci that the education in the Albanian language, as well as the Italian language, is paid for in southern Italy by the government. Now, think about that, and think about what Serbia does to prevent the Albanians in Preševa from getting books in Albanian that they can use in the schools. In fact, what they've done in the past is they said, all right, you can talk about Albanian history, but it's got to first be, it got to be done here in conjunction with Serb writers, and then you could translate it into Albanian. I mean, obviously, this is another form of genocide. It's called cultural genocide. And there were books that were on the border. I had to call Congressman Rohrbacher for months and months and months that we wanted to ship from Albania into Preševa. They couldn't do it. Now, I have to blame Rama in part because he hasn't been aggressive enough. And all of a sudden now he's become a good friend of Vučić. And I don't see him doing anything but trying to bolster his own political power and make more money. These people are all rich. I heard, and I hate to mention the name again, but he deserves it because he didn't support me when he should have. Sali Berisha, didn't support the Cham issue the way he should have. He had people in the parliament that were Albanian, Chams, and they had resolutions then. We invited two of them here because we wanted to help them. I'm not going to mention the names. But then I understood that he sold out Berisha to the Greek government and to Fatos Nano. And therefore we couldn't get it going. So this is the kind of stuff that goes on. We don't have Albanian leaders in Albanian lands that are competent, honest, and know what they're doing. In fact, I just mentioned to you in Macedonia. Why do we need 8, 9, 10 parties? Why can't they get together? Because everybody has a personality and they want to raise money for what? I don't know. Don't you want to have a good voice around the world? I think you got to get together. So I'm going to make this public now because these are things that have been on my mind. Now, in terms of, Italy, I now wrote a letter to the Italian government that they should have a kind of bilateral agreement with Albania and recognize this unique group of Albanians in 51 Albanian-speaking villages as a unique cultural group. Give them some status. Right now, there's no status for them. And a lot of the ones I met are educated. They have big voices. When I went to Switzerland, one Albanian, our branch he took the train. He's an accountant that works in Switzerland, took the train one day to hear me and Shirley speak and had to get back to work the next day on Monday. That's how dedicated they are to the Albanian cause. We have to understand this. I don't think Albanian people realize the friends they have. They've been closed off from the rest of the world for too long, not only under, Albania, but even under Serbia. Serbia's done everything to buy off Albanian leaders and things like that. And Lord knows what's going on with the drug trafficking. And maybe that's one of the reasons why these Albanian leaders, I'm not going to mention a name, are in The Hague right now. They're all very rich. I wish these banks would tell us what their bank in Switzerland or wherever they are, or in the Kirks and Caicos Islands, what the balances are in their bank accounts. Because it's a shame. Turp, that's the word, turp, that my father taught me, for shame. And someone's got to realize that the Albanian people are not being properly represented. Now we'll see what the next, I'm not going to mention names, what the next leaders who are elected tomorrow are going to do. If they don't call me and Shirley within a week, you can be sure they're not serious about doing the job, and maybe they got a personality problem. Because I remember meeting with some of these people, even, after the war. I went to the Hotel Bazzi, invited a few of them, and they were looking at me like, why do we have to talk to Joe DioGuardi? It was like, I was in the wrong place. And these were people that were trying to gain respect. And some of them deserved it. They spent time in Serbian jails. In any case, I'm not going to get into all of that, except I am working, sending letters to the Greek government, Albanian government, and to understand, let them understand that other things have to be done, and they have a responsibility, not just for the Albanians in Albania or in Italy, but for the Albanian people.
Right, Mr. DioGuardi, your lobby is a very important one for the Albanians all over the world, really. But what are the other countries where your Albanian lobby that you run operates apart from the United States of America?
Well, you have to understand, Martin, that we are an independent, self-funded, democratic lobby of Albanian Americans. I don't have a secretary. I mean, I've got a full-fledged office here, but a lot of the work that we get done are with volunteers. Okay? Thank God that Shirley and I are dedicated. We work hard. This is our life right now, is what do we do to finish the job that we started for the Albanian people? We can't do it alone. We're not the government. And we're not, elected to do this in the Albanian lands, and we refuse to take money from Albanian governments. We don't want to be foreign. When you take money from an Albanian or any government, you are a foreign agent. You got to file not with just the lobbying rules, the Federal Election Commission. You got to file with the Justice Department. You got to show your contract. This is how I found out how many Albanians have betrayed, me. Why are you making these deals, and look what you're getting for $25,000 a month or $60,000 a month or $100,000 a month. This is the people's money you're using, and you're not supporting our league over here. You're supporting yourself. And we got to keep looking at this. And I'll see now what's going to go on in the future.
Have you thought, or are you in the process of opening probably a branch in United Kingdom where there is quite a large community, Albanian community in here, where ALB UK TV is as well, especially
I would
in
love
London.
to see, you know, I'd love to see it. We've gotten calls from people who have seen your show, and they've seen our work with Biden. Of course, they're very happy to see that. And other things, I sent them the trips that we took to Grecci, and they found it fascinating that we took a bus ride from Mother Teresa's beatification in Rome, 4 hours down to Naples, and to go to Cotundi Grecci, which is right near Naples. And they're interested now in doing more. Some of them have made some contributions to our foundation, and that's good. That's an educational thing, and we've got to continue with that foundation to build bridges with the Jewish people, the Italian people, and other main people that we believe are in sync with what the Albanian people believe in and need. So I would tell you that it's not up to me to create a lobby in the UK. It's up to the people that hear your show to come together somehow, and I don't mind introducing them to one another. We may have to do this on Zoom or something, so that they can understand how to begin it the way we did in Switzerland. We got two people in Switzerland, Luan Duraco, who was originally from Texas, who moved to Switzerland because his wife's family was, Swiss citizens, and then Lauren Steffa. They worked with us, and they built a group of leaders for the Albanian Swiss Parliament. They connected to important people in the Swiss Parliament, and right now we have like 20 Swiss parliamentarians that have a group supporting the Albanian people.
What challenges lay ahead for the Albanian-American Civic League, and when do you think it would be mission accomplished for this lobby?
Well, the biggest challenge right now is economic, because so many people have to support their families here in America before they can afford to become members of our league. We have several memberships, student membership, $25, regular membership, 100, then the family 250, executive 500. And then, if you were on the board, those board members spend thousands to keep us going here. But they can afford it. We don't take money. I always tell Albanians, your family comes first, your business comes second, and then think about our league. But please, if you have the money, don't buy another car. Make a good contribution to our league, because we want to be sure that we give a good foundation for the future in terms of the Albanian nation. I know I did a lot with Shirley to create a good foundation. When you read the book that's going to come out about 85 to 94, you will see every piece of paper. I've kept it all, beautiful photos, mainly information as to how we set the stage to take Milosevic out, make sure he got to The Hague. He's not there anymore. But unfortunately, Albanian leaders who then took over allowed Vučić to get that power. And he's now talking to Erdogan, and he's talking to Greeks. He's talking to everybody but Albanians. He only tells Albanians what he wants, and he doesn't want to recognize Kosovo. Well, too bad. Kosovo has to be recognized. Kosovo has to be part of the European Union. And we will work hard to get those 5 countries that have resisted that to understand right now, before even Kosovo gets into the European Union, they should now recognize Kosovo, those 5 countries, okay? And then we deal with NATO getting into Kosovo. And then we deal with the other issues I talked about. But we can't do this alone. We're not a government. We're not self-funded. Nobody left us a lot of money. I have to get on the phone, like I did when I was a congressman, to raise money. I have to do that today. And some people say, why are you doing that? That makes you lower. And that's another problem Albanians have. They don't like to ask other Albanians for money. It's part of the Albanian honor system culture that if I ask you for money, even for a good reason, like the Civic League, that makes me lower than you. No, we got to adopt the attitude of the Jewish people. The Jewish people always come together when it comes to Israel. They have differences, we know that, but they will get on the phone with anybody to ask for money. And they don't mind rejection. That doesn't affect their honor. You put Albanians on the phone and they get rejected by another Albanian, that could be a war. Not a war, but that could be an insult. And therefore, it affects the families. So I'm in a position where I've got to call these Albanians here. They want to hear from me anyway, and therefore then ask them for money. Doesn't make me feel lesser. The Jewish people, they ask 10 times and get once, they're happy. Albanians don't even want to ask once to another Albanian. So we got this issue to deal with. It's part of the, maybe part of the Kanun, I don't know. I read part of the Kanun dealing with Bessa, but I didn't read that part.
Lastly, Mr. DioGuardi, do you have a message for all the Albanians all over the world that you can send across from this show?
Well, first of all, I'm happy that I'm communicating with a lot of Albanians. Un jam shumë lunte që jam me ju sot on this show of yours, Albanian UK TV. The other message I have is that don't forget your history. It's a great history. Don't forget what Skanderbeg did. He wore down the biggest army in the world, the Ottoman Empire, because he was clever. Not because he had more soldiers. He only had 10,000. It was 250,000 soldiers that came to Kruja in one battle with Murad II. And he died in his tent because Skanderbeg killed over 100,000. How did he do that? He was clever. He knew that he couldn't beat that army. So he went miles down the road. He knew the mountains were high, and he knew to bring 250,000 soldiers to Kruja, Albania, you needed a lot of equipment. You needed food. You needed supplies. You needed tents. And what was he doing? He was the first guerrilla fighter of all time. He was throwing this stuff off the mountains to weaken the army. And then finally, when they had the big battle, it's amazing that he thought about Albania having this resin, a lot of oil in Albania. And he put torches, rags, and he had Albanians, I think 5,000 horsemen, one in each hand, coming down 3 o'clock in the morning, because in those days they didn't fight in the dark, right? 3 o'clock in the morning, but then he had them bring all the goats from Albania to Kruja, and he put on these horns of the goats these things and sent them all down the mountain at the same time, yelling and screaming and yelling. And Turks got confused and they were killed. And then Murad died. And now another one came, which was worse than Murad, Mehmet II. And he knew not to challenge Skanderbeg. He was smart because he realized those cannons they had with those big balls. Look at the cannonball, 1,000 pounds. You can find some in the Skodra. You can find some in the castle at the Skodra. Okay, it's still in the wall. You can't shoot that up. It's too heavy. But Mehmet became clever, and he says, you know what? I'm going to go after something they don't believe that I can do. Constantinople. Why? Level land. And he took over Constantinople 3 years later, 1553. Now, that's a lesson in history. You can take that out if you want, but I always like to tell the story of how clever Skanderbeg was. And we have to be clever. That's the difference. We have to be clever. We're a small people. We're not a dominant country at this point, but we're smart. We got a great history. I've seen Albanians all over the world do things that are amazing. They have nothing. Like my father comes here, 1929, during the Depression, 15 years of age, couldn't speak one word of English, only Italian and Albanian. And 4 years later, my mother tells me, she met him in the Bronx, you can't believe your father. He was the only one with a car, with a silver wheel and a radio in a car in the Bronx. He was a farmer. He found out that the black people in Harlem loved greens, collard greens, mustard greens. And he realized right near the Yankee Stadium where all the farmers came in from Long Island, and he put those boxes on the corner. And then a few years later, 145th Street, Sugar Hill had a store. Hey, I'm his oldest son. Don't you think he gave me those genes? Don't you think he made me clever? And thank God my mother said, hey, Joe worked in the store with us. He worked hard. We got to make sure he has a good education. Sure, he wants to work as a waiter and make some, but we got to make up the difference because he needs a great education because he's going to do something important with his life. That was my mother, Grace Paparella DioGuardi. In any case, I'm proud to be Albanian. I said that before, and I'm happy to speak to so many Albanians. And I hope I can motivate your children, sons and daughters, to understand who I am as a person, who Shirley is as a person, what we've accomplished against great, great odds since 1985 to bring us here today. And still, the job is not finished. It's maybe not even half finished. It depends on the Albanian people. What are they motivated by? Money? Greed? Drugs? I don't know. Some of them must be. We had a president here that now I hope gets convicted. He's been impeached twice. He's motivated by money and power. Look where it got him. He's out. His history is going to be finished. Now we need Senator Biden, and we got to make sure we redo that meeting that happened in the White House with Grinnell, who was pro-Serb, just the way Vucic, and just the way, Trump, pro-Putin all the time. Why? We still don't know. Must be some deal that he was willing to make with Putin to make money. This is not Joe Biden. He's one of the most honest people, dedicated people. We're lucky to have him. And it was a close election. So now we have someone who's willing to listen. He came to Kosovo to see his son's monument there. Don't forget, his son was even in one of the armed forces events in Kosovo. So he has a big history with Kosovo. With me, Shirley, the Albanian people, and we think now the first thing that has to be done, if the new leaders are smart, and I think they are, they have to send an official letter that they're representing the Albanian people of Kosovo, all of them. Don't come here representing a party. Don't even mention a party. Mention the people. And start thinking about how you're going to convert your election system to the one we have here. It wasn't easy to get rid of President Trump or former President Trump, but we did it because our system works, checks and balances. And Albanians have to understand that. I'm a certified public accountant. Believe it or not, I'm the first accountant, CPA, chartered accountant, ever elected to the US government, House or Senate. And I've had some laws passed already because that was a key thing. And that's how I got to Congress. I ran as a CPA. No Albanians knew me when I got elected, but they found out about that, and they all lobbied me, educated me, and I saw that these are my father's people. And I have to dedicate the rest of my life to make sure they're not distracted from what they need, their families, their nation, democracy, and I want to help with Shirley to do that.
Mr. DioGuardi, it was a real pleasure to have you on my program, and thank you for being a part of it.
My pleasure. And thank you, Martin, for finding me. I think it was somebody, maybe it was you that called me one day. It must have seen maybe the YouTube video. This is good. We have an opportunity now to find each other all around the world.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Follow me there at Shum.
Shikues të nderuar, ishim kështu në programin sonte me Joseph DioGuardin, lobuesin shqiptar në Shtetet e Bashkuara të Amerikës, i cili është edhe një ish-kongresmen në Kongresin e Shtetet e Bashkuara të Amerikës. Unë ju falenderoj që ishit me ne për programin natës së sotme dhe ju uroj natën e mirë dhe mirupafshim.